Yo, what's up, everybody? The Boxing Source here checking in, and this one is just a little bit of a bonus. As you know, we had a very extensive Boxing Source podcast the other day, and there were a couple of topics that were out there that I didn't quite talk about on the podcast. So I was going to touch on a few things here, have some takes on it, and then we'll be able to talk about another set of topics later on down the line going into this boxing week. Now, this first one here is to talk about this upcoming fight week, as we got a lot of fights, a lot of fight cards that are coming up here. Of course, you're going to have the undisputed heavyweight title fight, Alexander Usyk, Daniel Dubois at Wembley Stadium. Okay, that's going to be a big one. You got the rematch and everything like that. And here, we're going to see if Daniel Dubois is going to be able to defeat Alexander Usyk and become the undisputed heavyweight champion. We all know about the whole controversy with their first fight. Luis Pabon is definitely not going to be the referee for this upcoming fight here in the rematch. So you don't have to necessarily worry about all that. So now it's more about, okay, Alexander Usyk having these fights that he's had, 2 against Anthony Joshua, 2 against Tyson Fury, 1 against Daniel Dubois, and a multitude of others. He's fought Derek Chisora also there in the heavyweight division. So he's had a number of big fights here, so far while being a heavyweight. So he's been a 2-division undisputed champion, of course, cruiserweight, not heavyweight. And this time he could become undisputed champion again, kind of like how Canelo Alvarez became undisputed champion at super middleweight with his win over William Skull in May. But here with Daniel Dubois, confidence through the roof, ready to go. As he says, I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready. But you know what? We're going to see how he's going to do here in this particular rematch against Alexander Usyk. And I can't wait for that matchup there. And it's going to be a good one and look forward to it. Next up to talk about is Las Vegas, MGM Grand Garden Arena. The WBC Welterweight Championship on the line. Mario Barrios defends the welterweight title against Emmanuel Dapidron Pacquiao. Yep, that's right, Manny Pacquiao. Yes, that's right, the 2025 International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, Manny Pacquiao, going for the WBC Welterweight Championship. And yes, it has been about 4 years since Manny Pacquiao's bout against Yordenis Ugas. That was for the WBA championship there for welterweight. And, of course, he had lost that fight by decision. And we haven't seen Manny Pacquiao in the boxing ring since. Yes, he did have an exhibition fight last year. But, that's an exhibition. And on the flip side with Mario Barrios, of course, he's been established as the WBC champion. He did have a bout there against Abel Ramos in November of last year that ended up being a draw. So, we had some people that may say that maybe Pacquiao has a chance. But I'm not sure about all that. I'm not sure about all that. And, some people, that are, I guess, fans of big events are leaning towards Manny Pacquiao winning because the possibilities could be endless if Manny Pacquiao wins. But with that being said, I highly favor Mario Barrios in this matchup. And I'll talk about that more in depth on the midweek report scheduled for Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on this channel. Third on the docket, you have at the Star at Frisco, Texas, Jesse Bam Rodriguez going up against Fumalele Cafu. And it'll be the unified titles there in that particular weight class. You do have Bam Rodriguez as one of the fighters that is on the Boxing Source pound for pound list. And, I see him here. He's, trying to become undisputed champion there in his weight class. I know that there's been multitudes of potential fights that could be out there for Bam Rodriguez. A number of people have said maybe Bam Rodriguez should be fighting Junto Nakatani there. But, Bam Rodriguez is pretty, cool with being at that, particular division there. As you got, Junto at 118. Bam, I think there's supposed to be at 115, and he wants to go ahead and be undisputed at 115. So that's why we have this first unification bout. And yes, Bam Rodriguez has been scheduled for another fight in November for Ring 4, as in their fourth, fight card. Of course, they had Ring 3 last weekend. But for Bam Rodriguez coming up into this fight against Fumalele Cafu, I've seen a couple of fights there from Cafu. Yeah, y'all see why Ben Rodriguez is highly favored in that matchup. So I'm seeing this as fairly early victory there for Ben Rodriguez, but also you should have on the schedule Diego Pacheco going up against Trevor McCumbee there in the super middleweight division. And the super middleweight division is looking, really, really good as far as like what could potentially happen as far as matchups around the top of that division. Yes, we did see what happened on Saturday night there. I'm sorry, y'all, but shouldn't even be laughing like this. But yeah, y'all saw it. Hamza Shiraz pretty much stopped Edgar Berlanga there in the super middleweight division. But I mean, remember, Berlanga was a former world title challenger. And now you got Hamza Shiraz that is there as, I think it's a WBO Intercontinental Champion, but also will be named eventually as a challenger to the WBC Championship, which is interesting because the WBC says that. What is going on with their WBC interim champion there? You know what I mean? So that's a whole little situation there within the super middleweight division. Of course, you got Canelo Alvarez facing Terrence Crawford September 13th at Elysian Stadium. So that, makes for a whole lot of things to sort out there within the 168-pound division. You know what I mean? Because when you have, that as a highly contested event and scheduled for September 13th, you got Christian and Billy, who is actually the WBC interim champion. So with Hamza Shiraz, he's saying, oh, he is the mandatory challenger for the WBC belt. Okay, well, what's up with Christian and Billy? I don't know. But with Diego Pacheco, he is currently rated number 1 in the WBO rankings and could also say that, hey, I want my shot, you know what I mean? Because we've already had the whole thing with the IBF. Now we got to see who will be next in line there in the rotation, you know what I mean? But the winner of Canelo versus Crawford is highly likely that they're not going to be fighting again this year. So if someone like requests for, the mandatory, then they're likely going to get the belt because Canelo and Crawford ain't going to fight those guys. I'm just being real with you. They ain't going to do that. So that being said, right, with Diego Pacheco and Trevor McCumbee, we saw what Trevor McCumbee was able to do there against Caleb Plant, even though we got stopped. So Diego Pacheco got to be real careful in this one. So I think that one there in the co-feature bout is a good fight to watch out for there. And of course, with the main event there with Ben Rodriguez and Fumulele Cafu in a unified world title bout. Now, one other thing that was a hot topic there over the course of the weekend was the news there of Gervonta Tank Davis. Of course, with something that happened outside of the ring. They had the news there in reference to his arrest due to a little bit of a dispute of sorts. And, he had been bailed out last Friday. So he had the whole thing where he was arrested and then was bailed out later in the day, according to reports. So, when people were seeing that, they were like, maybe the fight between him and Lamont Rose Jr. would be in danger. A lot of people have been trying to look for the announcement for the rematch between those two. As of, what was it, yesterday when I checked the Nevada State Athletic Commission in their events calendar, they still had August 16th reserved out there for the T-Mobile Arena. So, maybe that's still the case. Now, there's been, word that they may, end up announcing that particular fight there for this upcoming pay-per-view for Pacquiao Barrios, that it could be for August 16th. I don't know. I'm hoping it could be August 16th or maybe a little bit later, maybe push it a week or two, you know what I mean? Because, being in media, if you want to be interested in applying for these events, you want to have like a certain amount of time in order to apply and then be able to plan it out. So if they had announced it, or if they announced it on July 19th, the evening of July 19th here, and it's scheduled for August 16th, then you pretty much will only have like a couple of weeks to, apply to see if you'll be able to be credentialed and whatnot. So, kind of like makes for a little hectic things for, people that want to actually cover the event and things like that. But outside of that, just the main thing, making sure that, Tank Davis is, ready and available to fight Lamont Rose Jr. There in the rematch for that WBA lightweight championship there. And it's a fight that, a lot of fight fans are looking forward to, given what happened in the first fight. So we got to see what happens there on that front. Now, I did talk about the busy weekend there for July 19th, of course, with the 3 events. the Wembley Stadium event there for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. You have the unification bout there at the start of Frisco, Texas, of course, Ben Rodriguez versus Fumile Cafu. And then in Las Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada, you're going to have Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios for the WBC Welterweight Championship. So that makes for a busy July 19th. And then the following weekend, you have a set of events there too, right? Because you're going to have on July 25th, OTX 15, Elijah Pierce is going to be headlining that event. You're also going to have O'Shea Jones there in a world title bout. And you're also going to have Haven Brady Jr. involved in that fight card as well. We might have some more interviews with the fighters involved in that fight card. I did have a conversation with Elijah Pierce earlier. That was like from last Friday. So be sure to check that out on the channel. And also with that event on July 25th, July 26th, you do have Top Rank with the bout between Xander Zayas and Jorge Garcia Perez for the vacant WBO Super Welterweight Championship. That's going to be at the theater at Madison Square Garden. You're going to also have Bruce Carrington there in action. I think it's Messias Haita, like it's a tough name out there, but that's going to be for the interim WBC Featherweight Championship there. That's going to be part of a stacked card at the theater at Madison Square Garden there for Top Rank. And then also we're going to have a number of other fight cards that's going to be going on out and about around the country. And also you're going to have there in Detroit, Claressa Shields going up against Lanny Daniels. They're defending her titles there. And you're also going to have the return of Tony Harrison on that card there. That's a Salida Promotions card for July 26th in Detroit. So you got a lot of action also, not just this coming weekend, but next weekend. And then also there with Claressa Shields, she had been very vocal last weekend, of course, with what happened in the fights at Madison Square Garden, because you had, of course, Katie Taylor with the decision win over Amanda Serrano. And, there was a little bit of a back and forth, between the PR team of Amanda Serrano and Claressa Shields for the past few months. And so with that last decision win by, Katie Taylor, Claressa Shields had, something to say about that. And also with the fights on Saturday, that was in Queens, New York. She was there for Ash Shakur Nafis Saeed Stevenson as he defended his WBC lightweight title there against William Zepeda there. And she was there front and center, yelling and screaming and everything like that. So, that's she's like his biggest fan or something like that. They've been like road buddies and all that type of stuff. So, there's a whole, lot of activity there from Claressa Shields, but, she's now in her final preparations for her bout around her home area there, not, far away from Flint, Michigan there. So be also able to check that out. That's supposed to be on the zone there for July 26th. So a lot of boxing action here for this summer. Hopefully you're able to catch all of that. And if you like the content here for this particular report, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We do have on the schedule there, of course, Real Boxing with Coach Ronnie Shields for Tuesday evening, and then the midweek report for Wednesday evening here on this channel. So with that being said, I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.